I've got some tomato plants here that are ready to be moved out. Unfortunately, it's been raining like a ton lately. We've had barely any nice days, and I'm a little bit uncertain about putting them out in under so much rain. It's Krista from Hilltop in the Valley blog and YouTube channel, and today I'm actually going to be talking about something a little bit different than I have been lately. And if you saw my video on how we homestead for special diets in our family, you know that we do a lot of gardening in our family, and we also raise animals on our little homestead. Blossom end rot is a disease that affects tomatoes, it affects squash plants, and what happens is that the end of the fruit will grow and it'll start getting like black or dark spots on it, and it'll kind of turn mushy. And blossom end rot is actually, it comes from a lack of calcium. So come along and let me kind of show you how I turn these eggs into a wonderful nutrient for our tomato plants in the summertime. Why would you do this? Why would you need eggshells? So when we plant tomatoes here in the Northwest, it is very wet. And one of the things that I like to do, especially since I am trying to build up our soil, is to use eggshells in the soil with our tomato plants. And I grind these up in my food processor to help bring extra nutrition to the tomato plants so that they can ward off diseases like blossom end rot, and just to help strengthen them to be able to fight off things that might come their way. So the purpose of calcium in planting tomatoes is to give them extra strength. You think about calcium in our bones, and it really is the foundation for holding us up. Now, I have to put in there that sometimes a lack of calcium isn't just because you're not getting it from the soil, it's because it's not being carried to the plant. So you do want to make sure that you're watering properly. You also want to make sure that the other nutrients in the soil are at their proper levels, which is why having a soil test can really be helpful. Because if not all the nutrients are at the correct levels, some of the nutrients are actually going to cause other ones to not be taken into the plant as well. I've used eggshells in my tomatoes the last couple of years, and I've had really good results. Last year, even though we were in an area with new soil, they did not have issues until way into the fall, and I mean like September, October time, when they were actually just starting to kind of die off. And so we had a really good summer with our tomatoes last year. So who is able to use eggshells in their garden? Well, if you are doing raised beds and you have a wonderful compost and you have great soil that you're using, you might not actually need to use eggshells. In fact, eggshells might cause you to get a little bit too much calcium in your soil. Now, it is recommended that if you're doing this, you get a soil test so you know exactly how much of each nutrient you've got and how much of the nutrients you need for your soil. Now, I'm going to talk about my own soil because I'm in this position where I am just trying to build up soil. We have a garden that is just a couple of years old right now, more than a couple. It's a few years old. And then we have another garden that is brand new. Last year was the first year that we were planting it, and we didn't even plant in the whole area of it. And so it has soil that is extremely clay-like. It's not the greatest for growing things. We did struggle last year, even though we did bring in compost and some other really good soil to try and mix in with it. But it is just not there yet. If you are still trying to build up your soil and you're in that place just like I am, I would recommend using things like this to help build it up. Of course, if you can get a hold of a soil test, you can either do it like an at-home test or you can do it at a county office. where you send your soil in just to see what it looks like. You can look and see how your soil has been over the years. I know that mine needs to be built up, so I'm going to go ahead and use my eggshells to put in the nutrition that I can. If you have soil that you are trying to build up as well, then this is a great thing to do for it. If you've seen some of my previous videos on our homestead, you'll know that we have chickens as well as ducks. And my son can't do chicken eggs, so we started doing duck eggs for him. So this is the duck eggshell, and these ones are the chicken eggshells. I don't know if you can see the duck eggs a little bit bigger. But I save these, and you can use eggshells for several different things, really. I know some people compost with them, and I've heard of people even planting in them. I haven't done that, but I save these. I grind them up in my food processor. You can also use lime to add calcium to the soil for your plants, but here's the thing, if you add lime, you are going to change the pH of the soil, and that is something I don't want to have to worry about messing with, because that can affect other things as well. So these are great for us because we use a lot of eggs in our house, and not only am I reusing, but I'm using something that we already have at our house. I'm not having to pay for it, I'm not having to create it, it's already there. And so I just stock up on these. I leave them out in our mudroom, and then every so often when we get full of them, I will take them in and I will put them in my food processor. You can also use something like an old coffee grinder. That would probably be a better option, really, because you don't have to worry about being too hard on the blades or anything if you're not using it for anything else. But I put these in my food processor. I put it about halfway full, and then I will grind them up into kind of small pieces. It's not really quite a powder. You will have some powder in there, but they're just really tiny pieces and bits, and I will store them in a jar. And when I plant my tomato plants, I'll dig the hole. I'll bring my jar of eggshells out with me, and I go ahead and put about an eighth of a cup to a quarter of a cup in each of the holes, depending on how much I feel like I need to add extra calcium to that area. Another thing to remember when you're planting your tomatoes is the watering is really important. Even if you're adding calcium, if you're still having trouble with watering and they get too much water on them and they're not able to dry themselves off, they can still be susceptible to things. Tomatoes get really susceptible because of water that's left over on them, such as blight. Adding calcium is really good for your tomatoes, but make sure you're doing other things for them as well. Make sure you're either watering in the morning so that they'll have the ability to dry off throughout the day, or that you're making sure the rest of the soil is healthy. You can add in Epsom salts as well to add magnesium into your soil if you're trying to build it up as I am. And make sure that you're not watering every single day. It's really good because tomatoes have a large root system to let them grow down deep by preventing watering for a few days so that they will grow down to trying the water and then heavily water them. Like I said, you don't want to be watering overhead like in a time where they're not going to be able to dry off, because that can cause blight as well. I hope if you are trying to build up your soil as I am, that using your eggshells might be a really easy and helpful thing for you as well. I've been happy with doing that, and I'm really glad that I'm able to just reuse the things that I have and know that I'm helping our soil out and helping out our garden for the years to come as well. So if you haven't yet, check out my video on our new garden area that we are trying to build up. It's a work in progress. It's not all finished. It's way farther than it was last year, but next year, of course, it will be even farther than this year. But it's just really fun to see the process and to actually see things growing out there. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. I'd love if you would join us, and it also helps other people to be able to see our channel when we get more subscribers. Thanks for hanging out as I plant our tomato plants, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.